is, I think, one good thing, right, that you will find actually in the lab is to do the survey, right? User survey is a good starting point, a bit understanding the who your users are, the demographics, the abilities, and what their needs, whether they're happy with the current approach, what are the things that they don't like, or what are the things that they really want, all right? So that's some things that we can do with a user survey. And of course, we can standardize them and create a questionnaire. I mean, creating a questionnaire is very simple now. I mean, we can have all like survey monkeys and all the tools to help us. Setting up should be straightforward. I think when we go through some of my colleagues in the school, actually their task is to come up with the questions to ask in the questionnaire. To come up with a quick questionnaire actually is a difficult task. It's a professional task, all right? And I think I'll leave it to a bit later to the other slides to talk about why it is the case. And then of course, if you come up with a survey, then, well, who will be the one that you're going to ask? Right? If it's in a company, sometimes it might be easier. They just go to all the different users. But what if it is a large international, multi-countries companies? You may not be able to contact them all individually, face-to-face. Right? So in that case, what should you do? Right? Set up a web page, or I email them. Do I email all of them? I mean, it's good. I mean, but most of the time, I mean, just simply using an email. I mean, the success rate is really low, about 10% at most, I think. And so do you do samplings, and then you create some kind of, we call a focus group, invite them to come along and really share the experience. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And having a focus group, that is, you target certain people that you know they're going to contribute a lot of information to you. Ask them to come together for a small meeting for about an hour or two. You sit down and you go through the issues. So it's like you're trying to find out representatives from the samples that that your system is going to apply to, and then to get to solicit the information. Right? And of course, there's a lot of like interviews or group focus group techniques that we can use. Whether you want to tape them, video them, or some people don't like to be on the video recorded. All right? So because they don't really want someone at the end, the boss come in and say, "Hey, you said that." So you're a bit nervous if you are trying to put these things up. And then, of course, then we have to check this, how valid is your questionnaire. So if you come up with questionnaires and the answers actually don't help you, or it's wrong, then what's the point? So survey is useful at the design stage, at the very initial stage, and of course at the very last stage, right? At the evaluations. Right? So questionnaire is cheap to run it, right? Because you just hang out a paper to someone and ask them to fill it. But to prepare a good questionnaire, as all keep saying that it is hard, right? And having a questionnaire, most of the time now we have all these boxes that we will try to say. You can quantify your results. Of course, a lot of the time, like for those who have been in this uni, if it is not your first semester, you know that at the end we have asked you to do a unit of studies survey, all right? And they're going to change it this time, so it's slightly different, but it's still a survey. We like to have all these boxes that you tick, but we also, as a staff, we're also much more interested what you write. Right? You want to have some more open-ended answers, because that is where we get more useful feedback to us, how to improve the course. So a survey or questionnaire is good only depending upon what questions that you put in there. So you have to set up the questionnaires, what information you are asking, how will you analyze them. You use paper-based. You use the computers. It's much easier to analyze. But if you're using we now have all these textual comments, how are you going to do the analysis as well? Right? So don't ask questions that's just as a curiosity and at the end you don't really use it. Right? So, and determine who your target audience that your questions are. So also the question has to be phrased in appropriately. One thing that my colleagues telling me that especially like if you're creating a questionnaires or surveys that is going to different countries, and sometimes you have to translate to different language. That translation is really sensitive because a slight difference in terms of like the article or even the ordering of the words will be substantial difference from the original instrument, or we call this questionnaire is called instrument. Right? So very different from your original question. So these are the things that you have to be careful if you plan your questionnaire is to be multilingual. Right? Also determine how you deliver your questionnaires, right? Whether you just walk out from this room and then just pick anyone out there and then ask them questions, or you put up as a online form in the web that you can collect the information, right? Or you send as a service mail. So we have different types of questions. We have open-ended questions because the good thing is we can get more answers from the information from the users, right? But it could be very subjective, right? I think in the past I asked, should I have a class of having 1 2-hour block or 2 1-hour block, right? So 1 year, then I have like now I have a 1 2-hour block, and everyone said no, it's not very good because it's very tiring and so on. So next year I change it, all right? I change it to 1-hour block, and then everyone said no, actually we want 1 2-hour block, right? Because now I have to come in 2 times in a day. Now if I only have in a single day, it would be much better. So what should I do? Okay, then I put it like 2 1-hour block, but in the same day, all right? So it's like one at the 9 a.m. and then the other one at 3 p.m. And then this time the survey results came back saying that it's very annoying because now I have a few hours in between. I don't know what to do. So I think this is called the open, and sometimes you have conflicting and hard. I mean, you don't really know how to. It's very subjective, right? And it really depends on people's circumstance. So the good thing, this is good and bad thing with subjective or open-ended questions. Of course, you can limit how people answer, and this is most of the time that we will see. I ask them to tick boxes. All right, so it's a closed-ended questions, and it's easy to be analyzed because you can use. There's now a lot of software to run it, and you get the answers that you want. But also that you have to be careful how you phrase that question. I mean, I keep saying that how to phrase the questions, like the one that we have on the screens. If this, it just asks how often that you use the computers, if often, sometimes, rarely. Right? These are really fuzzy terms. People use this. Your sometimes could be some people's very often. Right? So maybe that you're really trying to make more concrete way of getting your results. So rather than use often, sometimes, and rarely, you use I use more than 4 hours a day, 2 to 4 hours daily, and so on. So that will give them a very concrete ranges. It's much easier, so people will not have a difference of interpretation of what is sometimes and what is often. Right? Likert scale is another one that we always use, right? And especially that later on in our study survey. So it gives you a scale, right? And to indicate how good or how bad or how much you disagree or how much you agree. All right? So this is. And it's called Likert scale because it's the person's called Francis Likert. Most of the time that you have to come up the scales, people generally recommend it has to be an odd number, so that it is from 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 that you will always see, rather than you have 1 to 4. All right? Because sometimes people say, yeah, I'm sitting in the middle. I don't have much opinion, so you give them a chance to say that I'm in the middle. You are neutral about it, and that has been used quite a lot of the time. And yeah, so if you use 1 to 5 in your survey, try to use that for all the questions. Not some of them you use 1 to 3, the other one 1 to 7, and this one you use 1 to 5. All right. You also use multiple choice. So if you allow people to take more than one, let them know, all right, and for your the options they have. You can even ask them to rank them, right, so that they can sort of determine which is the best one, the preference, so that at the end that will help you sometimes that if you have to use as a criteria, if you have limited resource, this This is the most of demanding things that people are asking. I think I should look at this one first. All right. So ranking is also a good thing, but try not to be too excessive. All right. If you put 20 items as a list, it will be very difficult to rank. A few of them, I think people can be able to cope with that. I think people always say that this magic number of between 7, so plus or minus 2, all right? Because that's how much that our brain can really handle, right? So 7 is about, they call it like a golden number. So if between 5 to 9 is a good number of items that people can still remember and how to cope with and to manipulate all these items there. Of course, then you can combine open-ended and closed questions. I think that's have been used a lot of the time as well. In addition to asking you your agreements and so on, we also ask you, say, why did you have this opinion? All right. You can also put some kind of internal validations in your questionnaires. All right. What I meant is sometimes people will put this question is yes and the other question is no, which is the opposite. Right. So for example, what I'm putting here is, if I'm asking you that one question is I am an expert web developer, and then another one is I know what HTML is. If then on one hand you say that, yes, I'm a professional web developer, I'm very good at this, but then on the other hand say that I don't know what HTML is, you will start to question whether this person is saying the right, providing you the right information. One of them must be wrong, because if someone is already a web programmer, he should know clearly what the HTML is. Right? So that's some kind of like, in terms of the question that you create in an instrument, you can do some kind of this kind of, we call the internal validation consistency checking to see whether people are sort of trying to muck around with the questions. And also that every time you try to put a positive statement as the in the question, so it's that I am a programmer or I like this subject, rather than I do not like this subject, you agree or disagree. That's just really difficult to figure out, right? So always do a positive statement.